Okay, today we're going to begin our discussion of nonverbal communication. Now, experts in the field of communication estimate that somewhere between 60 and 90% of everything we communicate is nonverbal. How can that possibly be true? After all, we put so much emphasis on our words when we're trying to communicate something. We think about what we want to say. We worry about what we didn't say. We think about what we should have said. We're concerned about how the other person interprets our words, and we interpret the other person's words. So, there's enormous emphasis in all our interactions on words. What about this 60 to 90% that is supposedly nonverbal? What does that mean exactly? Okay, let me ask you to think about some of the ways in which you communicate nonverbally. Just the broad areas. Maybe we should begin by mentioning an obvious one. That's what we call body language. That is, what we are saying by our posture, the way in which we hold ourselves, our gestures, that is, use of our hands, our facial expressions, all the things that say something to the other person, not through words, but simply how we present ourselves, how we move. Let's see, our eye contact, for example, is one that we may not think of right away, but it's extremely important, and our tone of voice. How about the meaning of touch? Touch communication, that is, who has permission to touch whom and under what circumstances. A very important point that I'd like to make is that nonverbal communication is difficult enough to study and understand in one's own culture. But it becomes extremely complicated when we are trying to understand how nonverbal communication functions in another culture. That is, one we're unfamiliar with. After all, if we're learning about another culture and learning the language of that culture, another language, what do we learn but words? The meaning of words and how they fit together and the pronunciation of words. So that when we learn French, we can take our dictionary and look up fromage. Or when we learn German, we can find out what Käse is. But there's no dictionary of nonverbal communication. So, where do we find out what a certain toss of the head means, or a certain blink of the eye, or the physical distance between people? It's very easy to misinterpret these cues or to miss them altogether. If you're puzzled by what's happening to you in a foreign culture, it's probably the nonverbals that are causing the communication problem.